Universal, and thank you for tuning in to Fright Night Radio. We love to bring you stories of fright every Friday night. Stories that are creepy, suspenseful, and most of all, frightful.
My own damn planet.
Klein, visitor, get your ass out here.
So while we're recording the whole thing? Alright. No, it's fine. That's fine, go ahead. A mere 2 months ago, I had a whole world to myself. Now I have this 8x10 cell. My lawyer, like most everyone else, doesn't believe me about the planet. Come on, Jimmy, he says to me. Your insanity plea sucks. You might as well drop this bit about the portal and your fantasy world and all those cat monkeys. Monkcats, I correct him. And I'm not pleading insanity. So then he wants to know why I never told anybody about the interstellar portal in my attic and the wonderful planet it led to. Was it because I was greedy and wanted the planet all to myself? Or maybe I feared having government agents interrogate me in some concrete bunker in the middle of Area 51? Go ahead and believe that, if you will. Believe that I'm making the whole thing up. But the truth is, I had this theory, of sorts, that if I told anybody about the portal, it would disappear. Like in all those Twilight Zone episodes where there's some magical, mystical something or other that somebody finds, then that somebody tries to show somebody else, and of course it's no longer there, and everybody thinks he's crazy. I figured that maybe these portals open all the time for certain people, but they don't want the whole world knowing about them. They'll open for one person at a time, but as soon as that person tells somebody else, the portal protects itself and shuts down. This portal just happened to open for me, an ordinary Joe. Rather, an ordinary Jimmy, as my name is Jimmy Klein. But anyway, telling anybody else about the portal struck me as a betrayal. I guess it's one of those things you just know, but can't explain why you know. Now, it's gonna sound crazy. And I don't even want to say it, but there's nothing else to do in this damned cell, so... Alright, I'll just spit it out. So I come home one day, went up to my attic to look for some odd thing or another I had stashed up there, and stumble upon an interstellar portal. Of course, I didn't know what it was at first. It just looked like a shimmering splotch of light on the wall. I touch it, and my hand just kept going right into the wall. So I pull it back, and I push it through again several times. After some time, I work up my courage, and I stick my head through. Felt like diving into a vat of Jell-O. On the other side of the Jell-O, I beheld another world. I pull my head back, I scream, holy shit. Maybe I should have uttered something more profound, like one giant leap for mankind or something. In that single glimpse, I beheld a vast desert landscape. It's complete with weird cacti, high ridges, deep arroyos. After some time, I worked up my nerve and took another look. The horizon seemed somewhat closer than on Earth, and its star was a bit wider than our sun. I pulled myself back to Earth. It was definitely another planet, and I, Jimmy Klein, had discovered it. And to think, I'm an electrician and a handyman. I'm not an astronaut. But just because I wasn't an astronaut didn't mean I lacked a sense of adventure. I wanted to get right out there and explore this new world. I figured it would be a good idea to bring a weapon with which to defend myself. Since my .45 was way downstairs, I rummaged around till I found a suitable substitute, my old wooden baseball bat. It's not exactly a phaser, but then again, I'm not exactly Captain Kirk. So I stepped through the Jell-O onto the surface of my planet. Already, I'm thinking of it as my planet. The air was dry, it's quite breathable. Actually, breathing it always got me a bit giddy, so I suspect there's a slightly higher concentration of oxygen than an Earth's atmosphere. It's a warm, pleasant day on Jimmy's world. At least where I happen to be. For all I knew, there could be Arctic regions and rainforests and who knew what all. But right here, it was a bright, sunny day. So I set out toward a ridge, already drunk on that oxygen-rich air. Here and there I find stones, piled into pyramids about as high as my waist. Just a few feet from each of these pyramids, situated a mound of sand. Aha! My first mystery! Somehow it seemed appropriate that the first mystery of my planet should involve pyramids. Maybe those little structures were built to hide something. What? I wondered. But then I thought, hell, it's my damn planet. I'll just find out. One swing of the old bat, that's all it takes. Demolish a pyramid. But the rubble seemed to be nothing but stones. So I got on my knees to sift through the stones when, whop! Something hard nailed the back of my head with enough force to make me see the proverbial stars. A second later, I was on my feet, bat held aloft, ready to defend myself. And that's when I caught my first glimpse of what I would later dub a �𝐴𝐴𝐴. At first it was just a brown blur, bounding from rock to rock. But once he'd reached a safe distance, he stopped and let himself be seen. His body was long and feline, but his facial features were definitely simian. So we stood there studying each other. Then, without taking his eyes off me, he reached down, picked up a small rock. The corners of his mouth twitched upward ever so slightly. "Yeah, come on, I dare ya," I taunted. In response, he made a sound like a laughing meow. Yeah, I think he was actually laughing at me. Then a moment later, more than a dozen others appeared on rocks all over the place, and they too made that strange laughing meow sound. My first thought was that they were really cute, but then I thought about how hard the first one had nailed me with that stone. You multiply that by 10, 15, and these guys could really do some damage. So the first 𝐴𝐴𝐴 stood to his full height, and yes, just as I suspected, he was getting ready to whip the rock at me. Only somehow he didn't seem to be threatening. I couldn't detect any malice about him, more like he was just playing. So he lets loose with the stone, but instead of throwing it right at me, he lobs it out in front of me. Now, without a thought, I swung my bat with everything I had, connected with a loud thwack. I send that stone into space. Now, far off, a 𝐴𝐴𝐴 I hadn't even seen before goes scrambling. Other 𝐴𝐴𝐴s chatter and meow, and they jump up and down like Red Sox fans. The far-off 𝐴𝐴𝐴 reached the pyramid, zipped up its side, and launched himself into the air to catch my high-flying stone. And a moment later, he lands in the nearby mound of sand, rolls down into his admiring crowd of fellow 𝐴𝐴𝐴s. Soon after, I saw another 𝐴𝐴𝐴 use the pyramid launch technique to bring down a small, colorful bird. Mystery of the pyramid solved in a single day, huh? So I started to have such a great time with the 𝐴𝐴𝐴s, I didn't even notice the planet's sun setting. Before long, I'm straining to see, and then panic struck as it hit me. I'm alone on an alien planet after dark. I set off in the direction from which I was sure I had come, but I could not find the portal. The temperature dropped noticeably. I widened my search pattern, and my pattern gave way to chaos as I lost all sense of direction. I could feel the 𝐴𝐴𝐴s watching me. I half expected them to start pelting me with stones, or maybe there was other life, predators that only came out at night. Ooh. I called out hello as loud as I could. No, I didn't expect to get an answer, but I just didn't know what else to do. But I got an answer. Somebody calling my name, but from far off. I called out hello again, nothing. Had I only imagined somebody had called? But no, the voice came again, slightly clearer this time. A woman's voice. It's Susan. Was my wife actually on this world? On my planet? I follow her voice, occasionally tripping over a pyramid. After a time, I finally come to the portal, and, just as I did, her voice came from the other side. "Jimmy, are you up there?" She was actually calling from Earth. I pushed my way through the portal, back into my attic. There she was, at the bottom of the pull-down stairs, calling up at me. "What are you doing up there? Do you know what time it is?" Nag, 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 nag. My planet became my obsession. I christened it Planet J. I hauled my big tent from the garage up to the attic and through the portal. I brought over a pair of binoculars, telescope, my bathroom scales, and a battery-operated radio. Everywhere I looked was more of the same. It's canyons, ridges, rocks, cacti, 𝐴𝐴𝐴s. I got reception here, but all Earth stations, no alien voices. I weighed 16 pounds less on Planet J than on Earth. Less gravity, more oxygen, and all the land I could ever want. Life was good. I set up camp. One thing bothered me, though. If Susan ever came up to the attic looking for me, she'd be sure to see the portal. couldn't have that. She'd blab it to the world, and my planet would no longer be my planet. I hung up a rug to hide the portal. That, of course, was only a temporary fix. It wouldn't stop anybody for long. For that matter, it wouldn't stop a curious monkcat from passing through to Earth. The portal is situated directly on one outside wall of the attic, so all I needed was a door to keep out intruders. And since the monkcats were smart little critters, it would have to be a door that locked on both sides. It cost me a good chunk of money to have such a door custom-made to just the right dimensions, but that's what savings are for, right? So my obsession kicked into high gear. I began working as few hours as I could at my job so as to spend more time with my planet. A tent no longer seemed adequate lodgings, so I decided to build myself a workshop. The kind I always wanted, but Susan would never allow in the house. When I returned to Home Depot to pick up my custom-made door, I also invested in an electric generator and a good supply of lumber, paint, nails, everything else I'd need. Then I placed an online ad and hired some sports medicine student named Bruce to help me haul the stuff up to the attic.
So, what kind of project you got going on up here?
The kind that's my business.
What's with this weird door? It's octagonal and,
Ditto, my business. Bruce stood looking in an old mirror I had stashed up in the attic. He flexed his biceps and his triceps a few times and struck an incredible Hulk pose. Maybe he thought that with enough muscular contractions he'd figure out what I wanted with the odd-shaped door. Before long, I tired of his Mr. Universe posturing and sent him back to Home Depot to get a couple copies made of the key. I wanted plenty of spares, just in case a monkcat ever ran off with one.
Could have got spares while we were there.
I reminded him that I was paying him by the hour, then shooed him out of my attic. Once he was finally gone, I screwed my door into place over the portal. What a relief it was to have my planet, Planet J, behind lock and key. So I set up the workshop on Planet J so that I'd be inside it as soon as I stepped through the portal. I brought up my gun collection, plenty of ammo, just in case I ever ran into anything more formidable than monkcats. Hiking about my planet was wonderful. But it occurred to me I could explore further and faster with a set of wheels. I test rode several bikes before settling on a 250cc Yamaha dirt bike. I love the way its two-stroke engine whined when I brought it up to speed. Getting it up the pull-down attic stairs would be a bitch, though, so I called Bruce for a bit of help.
If you don't mind my asking...
I do mind, I told him. Always with the stupid questions, this kid. I told him to shut up and get that bike in the attic. Who do you think it was, anyway, questioning me? The ruler of a whole damn planet. I love my planet, and I spent much of my time up there. Susan kept asking why I hid myself away in the attic so much. Why I wouldn't answer her when she called, why I never paid her much attention anymore, why our accounts were down thousands of dollars, and a bunch of other stupid nagging questions. So, from time to time, I forced myself to come down long enough to listen to her crap, laugh at her inane jokes, ha ha ha, and bone her till she shut the hell up. Then, it was always right back to Planet J. I hauled up a mattress, several boxes of books, good supply of food. The only thing missing from my new home was a touch of luxury. So, I decided to splurge and set up a jacuzzi, something in which to kick back, relax during the chilly night after a hard day of exploring. Once again, I call Bruce over.
You're putting a hot tub in your attic?
No, I explained with the patience of Job. You are putting a hot tub in my attic. I am supervising. After he finagled it up the stairs, I tossed him his money and herded him out the door. On his way, the obnoxious musclehead called me an asshole. Things went well on my planet. Each day lasted about 21 and a half hours. Weather was generally nice, warm days, light rain in the evenings, and chilly nights that made the jacuzzi really worthwhile. Sometimes there'd be a surprise on my planet, enough to keep me on my toes. Like what happened after I had a few too many brews. I had a real suck-ass day on Earth. Boss threatening to fire me if I didn't start filling more contracts. Wife nagging me about, some crap or other, that sort of thing. So I hauled up a case of MGD and set to forgetting my troubles. It was night on Earth when I went up, but daytime on my planet. It's no matter, as long as it's night somewhere, I do me some drinking. I got through most of that case when I decided to take a little ride on the Yamaha. I tore off through the Moncat village, letting that two-stroke engine whine and kicking over pyramids left and right. Let him just try and stone me while I was speeding along on that bike. After letting off a bit of steam, I rode back to my compound, puked a couple times, and passed out cold next to the bike. It was dark when I awoke. From not far away, a Moncat laughed. Meow ha ha. I roll over, I'm about to fall back to unconscious when I spotted something. I had to clear my head and rub my eyes to make sure, but yes, it looked like a man. Maybe 50 yards off. My hand went automatically for the .45 I keep holstered at my side. The figure didn't move, even after I called out, so I grab a halogen light from inside my workshop, and with .45 in one hand, flashlight in the other, I set off toward this intruder. Called again. No response from the man, but a Moncat laughed. Meow ha ha. I screamed at him, telling him to shut the hell up. It wasn't until I'm just a few feet away that I could see this was no man, but a pile of stones made to look like one. It's a foliage used to form the arms. Closer inspection with the mag light revealed some truly delicate artwork in the face. But this was made in the likeness of no generic man, but of myself. Which made sense, I figured. What else should these Moncats worship than myself, ruler of their village? Maybe I could really use this to my advantage. Train these critters to serve their deity, run and fetch me beers while I lounged in the hot tub. I'd hardly begun enjoying delusions of godhood when the first stone found its target. Not my head this time, but one knee. Split second later, another stone took out my other knee, and I'm down. I'd barely started to get back up when the barrage began. Aborting the idea of getting up, I curl up tight like a little baby and I cry for mercy. Unfortunately, the Moncats hear my plea and they stop. When I'm able to haul myself to my feet, they were all about. They had stones not just in their nimble little hands, but in small piles at the ready, a regular arsenal. I limp back to my workshop, I slam the door behind me, and I fall down laughing. I wasn't angry, I wasn't afraid, but rather, I developed a newfound respect for the Moncats. So I watched my step around them for a while. But it wasn't long before it was business as usual. All in all, I was having a wonderful time on Planet J. On Earth, however, things were not so wonderful. Susan nagged me relentlessly about where the savings had gone and what the hell I was so obsessed with in the attic. My boss complained about me taking forever on my contracts. Plus, I felt crowded on Earth, what with people everywhere, but no Moncats. I seriously considered moving to Planet J permanently, but as much as I sometimes don't get along well with other people, I knew that eventually I'd get lonely. I had to admit I'd get bored, not to mention horny. I sat mulling all this over during my lunch hour and a half when I came to a decision. I had to start paying more attention to my life on good old terra firma. What if the portal were to close? That thought hit me like a wrecking ball. As I sat in the Pizza Hut, slice of double cheese and pepperoni halfway to my mouth, I'd be stuck, either on Planet J or on Earth. All my favorite stuff, my workshop, tools, gun collection, dirt bike, jacuzzi, those were on Planet J. If the portal cut me off from my planet, I'd lose it all. And if it cut me off from Earth, I didn't even want to think about that possibility. There was no doubt about it. I had to bring my stuff down, get my feet back on the ground, and start living on Earth again. Go up and visit the Moncats from time to time, yeah, but spend more time on Mother Earth. Hell, maybe I'd even cash in on the portal. Notify the government or NASA of this wormhole in space. Get $1 gazillion for the discovery. No, I wouldn't do that. I admit I am a man with a rather fast and loose sense of morality. But doing that just seems terribly, terribly wrong. Like violating a sacred trust. I'm so engrossed with all these thoughts, I almost didn't notice the hot young redhead making eyes at me from across the Pizza Hut. Now, I am a 30-something man with a potbelly, so this kind of thing doesn't happen too often. I figured, yeah, right, she wants me to go over and come on to her, so when her boyfriend comes out of the john, he'll get all jealous and kick my ass. Then they'll, rush on home and hump like ferrets. But no boyfriend showed. She was alone. Kept casting coy glances my way. It's a golden opportunity. And hell, hadn't I just now decided to start enjoying life on Earth a bit more? Huh? Alas, I didn't know how to take advantage of such an opportunity. I ran lines through my head. Hey, my planet or yours? Those must be space pants you're wearing, because your ass is out of this world. That wasn't the ticket. Finally, I simply forced myself to walk over and simply say, hi. That was all it took. She introduced herself as Shelley, laughed at my jokes, flirted outrageously, and within the hour, I was blowing off work and driving her to my place. Susan wasn't due home for hours, so no problem there. Soon as we got to my place, Shelley dashed into the bathroom. Back in a jiffy. Lover, she chirped. I noticed her opening a cell phone, but with other things on my mind, I didn't think nothing of it. True to her word, she was out in a jiffy and wasting no time getting to my bedroom, beckoning me to follow. And follow I did. Susan's clothes and crap was everywhere, but Shelley didn't seem to care. And if she didn't care, then I sure as hell didn't care. She did a slow, sexy striptease down to nothing before throwing herself at me. About halfway into our second go-round, she announced, "Somebody's here." What? She bounded out of bed and dashed to the window. Know anybody with a black Explorer? That would be my wife. I ordered Shelley to get her clothes back on. She pouted and slipped into her panties. I tried to shove her and her clothes into a closet, but she protested she was claustrophobic. Downstairs, front door opened. Shelley twittered, "Here comes wifey poo." She was grinning. She's actually grinning like she's enjoying every second of the crisis. The girl was an absolute nutcase, which I had to admit just made her all the sexier. Susan calls out my name, announced she knew I was home. They'd said something about getting a phone call. Shelley leisurely dressed and commented on how she'd be pleased to meet the missus. What the hell was going on here? So in a near panic, I haul Shelley out of the master bedroom, go through the hall where I pull down the attic stairs. Up you go, be quiet. Ooh, it's so scary. Yeah, she clutched her purse to her breast in mock fright. But she's grinning like the proverbial cat that swallowed the proverbial canary. Then, just as she starts up the pull down stairs, I finally put two and two together. I lunged for her, but she just giggled and dashed up to the attic. No time for a quickie, lover. Wifey's here. Wife or no wife, I wasn't about to let Shelley get to the portal. I ordered her to stay the hell away from the door. She giggled, snapped to attention, saluted. I charged up the stairs, and just as I advance on her, she said, "I'm sorry, Jimmy," and one hand whips forth like a cobra. I barely recognized what she held before 775,000 bolts of lightning invaded my body, setting every nerve on fire. Who's counting? I dropped to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Now, imagine a sack of potatoes suffering seizures and attempting ineffectually to stop a sexy young vixen from reaching an intergalactic portal nestled away in an attic. That was pretty much the scenario. Oh, and about this time, the spasming potato sack's wife was screaming up from the bottom of the attic stairs about lawyers and a big, messy, expensive divorce. Susan ran up the stairs into the attic. I was still twitching from the stun gun attack, and Shelley had just opened the door and slipped through the portal. I was no more able to stop Shelley than I was able to climb Mount Everest. Seeing me flop about like a beached carp, Susan stopped her berating and took me in her arms. She was just telling me that everything was going to be all right, just fine, when Shelley, over on Planet J, begins pounding on the door. Where the hell does that lead? Phew, what could I tell her? Where to begin? While I pondered that conundrum and attempted to regain control of my body, a doorbell rang. Then rang again. And again. And a moment later, somebody went ape, pounding on the front door and screaming to be let in. It's Bruce, of course, good old muscle boy himself. Just as Bruce was shouting to be let in, Shelley started screaming to be let out. Susan, my poor long-suffering wife, was caught in the middle of all this and hadn't the foggiest idea of what was happening. Susan said, "You got a hostage in there?" "No," I said, my voice weak. Susan shouts to Shelley, "Hang on, honey, we'll get you out of there." Then to me, "And just who the hell is at the front door? It sounds like the guy who called me at work today. He said, oh hell, I'm calling the police." She lets go of me, whipped out a cell phone. By some miracle, I climbed to my feet. From downstairs comes a crash, pounding footfalls. Bruce was charging through the house, shouting threats that Shelley had better be okay, or I was a dead man. Of course, he knew just where to go. He ran up the attic steps, pushed past me, shoves a key into the door lock. less than a second after he stepped through the door, the portal disappeared. Door hung open, leading to nowhere. Well, the wall. Susan, still on the phone with the 911 operator, screams. I was told I also screamed, and was still screaming when the police hauled me away, but it's all a little fuzzy. They set me up, Bruce and Shelley. Bruce's curiosity was burning a hole in his little brain, so he must have enlisted the help of his bimbo friend. Bruce, I don't know, he wasn't really a bad sort, and I treated him somewhat like shit. As for Shelley, sure, she had helped Bruce out in his scheme, but at least she put out first. She could have just teased me along and played games until Susan got home, but instead she'd given me a little something for all my trouble. Kudos to her. For their scheme, they ended up stranded on Planet J. I was charged with kidnap and manslaughter. No, the police didn't have a body, but they did find a fingertip. I hadn't noticed at the time, but Bruce was only mostly on the other side when the portal closed. The very tip of his left pinky, still Earthside. That bit of physical evidence sealed the case against me. Now it's only Susan who'll be testifying for me. Susan, who I cheated on, lied to, neglected. My long-suffering wife is prepared to testify that she saw Bruce charge through the door in our attic and disappear into a ring of shimmering light.
I'm afraid your wife's testimony is rather incredible,
is what my lawyer has to say.
She's only a hair's breadth away from being thrown in herself for conspiracy. Are you sure you want to keep insisting she had nothing to do with this?
She's innocent. Leave her alone. I turn away from my lawyer, and I lie down, facing the wall. I spend a lot of time staring at the walls of my cell, praying that a portal will open. This time I won't betray it. I won't tell anybody about it or let anybody near it. I'll just go through and stay wherever it leads. Let it close up behind me. What's to become of Bruce and Shelley? I asked nobody in particular. Maybe it was my planet that answered. Because the dream, which repeats itself every night now, it's as vivid as life itself. It starts with a starship. Nothing as neat and clean as the Enterprise, but tin can of a space vehicle. Every bit as cramped and uncomfortable inside as a German U-boat. The men and women aboard, they're all making a serious sacrifice of time and life to travel vast distances for uncertain results. They eventually arrive at their target destination, a planet somewhat smaller than Earth. They circle about and detect what appears to be a tiny settlement. They choose to land nearby. Cut to Planet J. Only now it's under the stewardship of Bruce and Shelley, both grown old. Their grown children are off hiking. Hope of ever returning home has long since vanished for the couple. Memories of cities and college and cars and dance clubs and movies and countless other elements that comprised their former lives has been distorted. Now it seems more myth than fact. They've grown a little schizoid. So when the behemoth from space settles to the ground in a dragon's breath of raging fire, they both grab shotguns from my old collection. They make their stand as men in strange suits emerge from the ship. Bruce utters a curse, one which he had made up several years before and is now a part of the couple's vocabulary. Their language is this mixture of English and words they and their children's inbred children have made up over the years. Shelley overcomes her fear. She runs screaming, waving her shotgun like Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies. Bruce is right behind her with a Remington 30-06 in hand and my trusty old 45 at his side. Guns blaze. I awake in a cold sweat. That's it. I got nothing more to say. Shut it off. Shut it off.
Thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of Fright Night Radio. If you enjoyed our story, please give us a thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe to our channel so you enjoy a frightful new tale every Friday night. Pleasant dreams.